Welcome to StoryLit.Learny. Subscribe now and never miss a story. Today we're reading Private Investigators B3, The Case of the Broken Statue, a story about a stolen treasure, a frame-up, and two partners who refuse to give up until the truth comes out. Before we begin, let's meet our characters. Jeremy, a smart private detective that has strong attention to details but is overconfident at times. He's very analytical, but has a caring heart. He would rather help small-time criminals to change than hand them over to the authorities. Eileen, originally a scientific researcher who decided to help Jeremy with his detective business to pay him back for his help. She's very strong-willed and an avid reader, and she has a strong sense of morality. She's a bit of a workaholic too, but Jeremy helps her relax. The curator. Old, but very passionate about his work, so much that he builds his own theories about history. Alex. Appears friendly, but he's very snobby and abuses his authority in the museum to get his own way.
Eileen woke up early. Her research was now over, and she had published it successfully. But that was the problem. She didn't know what to do next. She wanted to take a break from her work, so she made a decision. She got dressed and went to the Private Investigations Office. Jeremy opened the door and welcomed her in, and they sat down.
So, how can I help you, Miss Hoger?
First of all, call me Eileen. And no, I don't need any help. Thank you for helping me last time, though. Actually, I'm here to offer you help.
I'm sorry, Eileen, I don't understand. How are you going to help me?
I want to be a part of your office and help you with your investigations. I understand science better than anyone, and together we can work faster. What do you think?
Jeremy remained silent for a second, and then smiled.
Actually, I have a case now where some scientific experience could come in handy. So you can help me out, and after we solve the case, if you like my work, we can be partners.
Agreed. So tell me more about this case.
They made some tea, and while they were drinking it, Jeremy explained what had happened. Someone had broken an ancient statue at the museum. They had destroyed its head, and no one understood why they had done it.
So, let's finish our tea and go to the museum to check what happened.
Sure. I'm excited to be working on my first case.
They emptied their teacups and then drove to the museum. At the museum, Elaine and Jeremy were greeted by the museum curator, Rob. The curator told them the history of the statue while they were on their way to the crime scene. When they entered the room which had the statue, they found the statue's head completely destroyed, but the body was still in one piece. Jeremy wondered why only the head was destroyed and asked for the curator's opinion. The curator told them that there was an old story that said that thousands of years ago, a huge blue jewel was hidden inside the head. However, since the statue was so old and valuable, no one had ever checked to see if the story was true. Elaine said that she would take a sample from the broken statue to check it in the lab, and Jeremy asked the curator if the security cameras had recorded anything. The curator told him to ask Alex, the head of security.
Jeremy and Elaine went to Alex to ask him about the cameras.
Excuse me, sir. Would you mind answering a few questions? Of course not, detective. I'll be glad to help. Can you tell me if the cameras recorded anything last night, when the statue was broken? No, the cameras were off. When I checked them, I found that someone had disabled them at the time the statue was damaged. And who has access to the cameras? Only me and Rob, the curator. Final question. Where were you last night? I was at home. Yesterday was my day off. Thank you, Alex.
Eileen told Jeremy that she would go and check the sample in the lab and read more about the history of that statue and the blue jewel hidden inside it.
and Jeremy said he would go and see what the cameras had recorded before they had been switched off. When Jeremy watched the video recordings, he saw that someone was at the museum that night. It was Rob, the curator. He immediately went to Alex and asked him why he hadn't mentioned that the curator was working the night the statue was broken. Alex told him that he didn't want to get the curator in trouble. He said that Rob was a nice, hard-working man, and he would never do anything to damage the statue. Alex was then silent for a second, before he said the curator was probably there because he was always thinking of ways to find the jewel without breaking the statue. Jeremy asked if the curator was still at the museum, but Alex told him that he had already gone home. So Jeremy decided to go to the office and wait for Eileen. When Jeremy got to the office, Eileen was already there. She was sitting at the desk reading a huge book about the history of the statue. She told Jeremy that she had sent the sample to the lab and she was waiting for the results. She said that she had been reading a lot of books about the statue, but the story of the jewel was only mentioned in 2 books. The most interesting thing was that one of these books was written by the curator himself. So Jeremy told Ellen about what he had seen on the camera. Ellen was surprised.
Something feels wrong. I've read his books, and yes, he's always talking about the jewel and how if the jewel was found, it would be an amazing discovery. But I don't think he did it. From his book, I can see that he cares a lot about his job and the statue.
I don't know, Elaine. I think that he seems like a nice guy, but if he's always thinking about the jewel, maybe he just couldn't wait to find out the truth. Let's go talk to him again.
They both left and went to the curator's house to talk to him. When they sat down, Jeremy asked him why he thought there was a jewel inside the statue. The curator told them that the statue was of an ancient prince. The prince had a big jewel on his crown, and even though they had found the crown, they never found the jewel, so it must be hidden in the statue. When Jeremy told the curator that he thought he had broken the statue and that he was seen on the video recording, he was shocked.
No, I would never do that just to prove my theory. I was there because I love history. I love being at the museum.
Eileen asked him if he had told his story about the jewel to anyone. The curator thought for a while before saying that Alex knew about the story because he always mentioned it to him. Jeremy told the curator about what Alex had said, and the curator told him that he had given a copy of his book to Alex, but Alex never believed the story about the jewel. Eileen, Jeremy, and the curator went to see Alex. On the way, Eileen received a call from the lab. The sample they had sent to the lab was not as old as the statue, so the broken statue was a fake. Eileen told them the results and said that it must be Alex who stole the real statue and put the fake one in its place. The curator asked,
Then why would he break its head?
He broke the head of the statue to make it look like someone was looking for the jewel. Since you're always talking about the jewel, he thought it would make you the only suspect.
And since only Alex and you have access to the cameras, it would look like you did it to prove your theory about the jewel.
Jeremy and Eileen went straight to the police with the information they had, and after some investigations, they found the real statue in Alex's house. He was preparing to sell it. Alex was arrested, and the curator returned to the job that he loved. The curator thanked both Jeremy and Eileen for their help. When they returned to the office, Jeremy thanked Eileen for her help on the case.
It's okay. Let's drink some tea and wait for the next one.